Hi, everybody. Richard Tromans here again, Artificial Lawyer TV, doing a special interview today with Jen Berrent, who has co created a very, very pioneering law firm called Covenants. Jen, great to have you on the show. Could you tell us to start with what is Covenants, and then we'll get into how it started and so forth?
Sure. Yeah. Covenant is an AI powered law firm currently focused on the private markets. And so we are, whether you think of it as vertically integrated or, tech enabled services or AI native, we are all those things in terms of really thinking about how to create an end to end legal solution for a very specific client base. And that's, that that is what we do.
All right. Okay. So let's unpick this, and then we'll get into how you and your co-founder started this. So, is it a law firm that uses AI a lot, or is it an AI company that has some lawyers?
Is neither of those things really. So the way that we think about it is, you know, we started a law firm with the premise that AI exists. So, in the same way that, Amazon started a retail business with the premise that the internet exists. And so their logistics are based around a warehouse as opposed to logistics being based around a store. And so we started a law firm with the premise that AI exists. So how would you build your logistics around the fact that AI exists? The second part is that we want to very client focus. So we wanted to recreate a client experience for the generation we are today. So the delivery of legal services doesn't need to end with a Word document or an email, but the delivery of legal services could provide control over data and information to those clients in an interface that's technology that looks like any other SaaS product that HR or finance would have. And so we really started with that premise. And then from there, we sort of designed the business to have very specific solutions saying, okay, AI exists, lawyers exist, and how are we going to marry those two?
And I had a look at the website; it's very interesting. And you put like a sort of product page, or there's a most favored nation product and so forth. Is that how customers, clients come to you first? They say, "Hey, we've got these particular needs," and they slot into these product categories, and then these are just like legal tech products that just run themselves. Or you have to say, "Okay, great. I'm glad you've chosen letter B. We will now run that through you. Send us the documents. We'll have a lawyer overseeing this process." How does that work?
Sure. Yeah. So what's interesting is the clients come to us much less through a product led process. It is much more relationship based still. There's still a sense of I understand you're using AI, but I want to make sure I trust you. And that trust comes from the personal connection. So my partner, Richard Paris, who's former general counsel of CVC Capital Partners, or myself really meets with every client still, even if after that initial meeting, the human contact actually may drop off significantly. They do want to make sure that the quality behind it and the personal connection behind it works or is trustworthy. What we do have though is that we think that technology works best and most efficiently where you can have a dramatic decrease in cost and time is when you have, purpose built tools, right? So what we are saying is we have very specific problems that we solve end to end. And because we do that, even though it might be customizable on a client by client basis, that process just, takes something and decreases the time and cost by 80, 90%. And so that has been our philosophy is that it's not just a general purpose efficiency tool, but it really is a sort of a radical departure for our clients in terms of their experience, right? It's sort of a very new experience for them. And so we do limit it to, sort of products where we can have that size impact, right? Not just a marginal impact, but a pretty, dramatic impact.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about that. So, I mean, presumably you have to streamline what you can offer them. You can't offer
That's
them
right.
absolutely everything, even in that one niche of private investors. Or you're going to have to only offer certain streams because you're. I mean, how many lawyers are you altogether?
So we're 6 lawyers.
God.
but it's highly, highly leveraged, right? So the amount of work that we can do with those 6 lawyers is very high. So yeah, there's a lot of product development that goes into it. And so we started with a wedge of doing limited partnership agreement review. We really can do any investor side review. So if you're investing in private markets and you need your investment documents reviewed, summarized, issues spotted, we can do that. And so that really, we've expanded on the technology basis, sort of the back end of both interacting with AI, the regular platform technology, as well as the legal content, so that we're able to provide that solution. Same thing, we really can do any MFN election compendium. That was a big pain point for our clients. And so we didn't want to just say, okay, we can somewhat do that and we can do subdocs and we can do all these different things. We really wanted to take one problem and solve it dramatically for clients, and that's what we've done with the MFN.
Yeah, it's well, again, it opens up so many interesting points. And I love the way that you use the word leverage, but here the leverage is the technology. And I
That's right.
do wish that traditional law firms would think in the same way that that leverage model they've been living within, part of that leverage is the tech, rather than thinking that tech is this thing that they add on at the end.
Exactly, exactly. The technology is our leverage. And in fact, the way we even started is, so our, core product of this investment document review, we send it out to multiple models, right? So we said, we use ensembling. And so we think of it as, the marginal cost of an additional AI review is very low. And so wouldn't it be great, instead of having one AI associate review, have 5 AI associates review? And that's really borrowed from, historical machine learning of using multiple models. So then we get those multiple model answers back. And then the job of the lawyer to verify becomes easier, right? So if they all say, carry is 20%, that QA is very fast, right? When the models disagree, then you allow for sort of an additional layer of sort of diving deep into it. And so again, we said, okay, what is the leverage? The leverage is the AI, the leverage is the technology, the leverage is focus. The leverage isn't the people, right? Just, very different than the way law firms think about it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. It all comes down to a very, very old concept, the division of labor.
That's right. That's right.
Who does the work? What does the work?
That's right.
Very, very interesting. I think we now sort of set the table. So let's just go back a little bit. How did you and your colleague, how did you get into this?
Sure. So before this, I was at WeWork. I was the lead lawyer, and then I was the COO during the global expansion, scaling up of the business through the first failed IPO, and then stayed about a year longer. And so there were a lot of lessons from that WeWork experience that I could take and say, okay, what are businesses that could have a similar trajectory and impact? And I'm a lawyer by training. I was a partner at a law firm beforehand, and, you thought 10 years ago the AI should disrupt the law. And, I think a lot of people thought there's something that should change in the practice of law. And then with AI, obviously, there's that opportunity. But, what a few lessons were this idea of going to clients, right? So WeWork did disrupt and change the real estate business by focusing on the members, not focusing, the landlords. And I do think that for law to change, there needs to be a focus on the client experience, not on the law firm lawyer experience. And that was one thing that I thought would be important. The second thing was, I do think that in this day and age, going global is important, so that WeWork really said, look, we're going to, start with the US, but we're not going to, we're not going to own the US before we go global. And that is sort of a core tenet of what we're doing. So again, what is sort of a business that you can think about from a client perspective and a global perspective, those two things. And then what attracted me to private markets was I wanted to do something that was complicated, and not doing it just another NDA product or another, commercial contract, but really, how can you start with something that is high enough that it really is cutting into work you would give to an outside law firm, that you would give to big law, and it's sort of a very hard problem. And so There's obviously a lot of complication in private markets. You start with 120 pages of agreements. And so with that, I teamed up with Richard Paris, who is the general counsel, as I mentioned, of CVC. And we sort of structured a business around this idea of, complicated, going to clients, really, rethinking that experience of the law, lever that.
Yeah, no, it's and so it's just on if we can talk about the money side. I mean, do you have external investment? Are you allowed to have external investment? How do you grow this if it's not organic?
Sure. We do have, so one thing that has been interesting, we do have, I will start with the end, is that we do have external investment, and I'll explain our structure. But what we have learned is that when we started the business, we launched our first product, this wedge product of the LPA review, and we were ahead in January 2024. And the reason it even took that long was that until November of 2023, the context window was not large enough to ingest a 120-page document. And any other solution, RAG, chunking, just there's too much of a decrease in quality that the human was beating the machine, right? So you can't really launch a product where, it's still faster to have the human do it, right? And in legal, sort of the cross references, the nuance, the definitions, that all mattered. So we needed the big context window. That happened in November 2023. And so we really um, basically spent, that, holiday period building our MVP to say, now we can do this. And we launched in January 2024. When that started, we didn't know, would this be a business that core AI review with some client interface was then going to say, okay, now add a lot of service providers, right? And so that it was going to be a one-way street. Like, here we've reviewed something and now you look at it. And here's something else and we've reviewed it and now you've looked at it. But what has changed is that clients really want control of that experience. They want more technology. So they see law firm lawyers using AI tools and they want to use AI tools. They don't like law firms being the gatekeeper of their data. They want to unlock their own data. They want to, query their own verified data set. And so at the beginning of this year, we made the strategic decision that we really needed capital for product development, right? It's not just a matter of hiring more lawyers, but it's actually building more tools for our clients to use. And so we did take in capital this year, sort of as, led
And
by
if
Rich. Yeah.
just to interject, just as I'm a bit
Yeah.
of a
Yeah.
regulatory geek. So you're based in New York. It's a New York company. In which case, are you regulated by the New York bar, or how does
Sure.
that? So
Yeah. So the way that it works, our structure is that we have sister companies. It's a New York law firm.
so you have your law firm and you have your tech company, and the two.
Yes, and so exactly. And so it's a very typical, it's a license that goes between the 2. So there's an IP company, and what's in that IP company is obviously brand, but all the technology, but all of the costs of operating the law firm are in the law firm. And so there's a license between the 2 to use this technology. The other reason it's important for us to do this is we really believe that law could look like SaaS in terms of share of wallet. So, and the only in terms of, if I implement Salesforce, I don't put some of my, contacts there and some somewhere else. I just do 100% there. And we think law could have a similar feel if you productize, but we have a conflicts issue. And so we have decided we will only do one side of that transaction in this law firm. And if we want to use the technology to represent the other side, that would have to be a different law firm, either sort of a third party or something else. But we only do investor side. So
Oh,
investors are
so you are sort of like subliminally telling the market to create another company just like yours, who can do the other side,
the other side, or we could do it. Yes. So,
and you can
you
you
know,
could really speed things up then.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. But we're working now. Honestly, there are a lot of GP side or, company side law firms or solutions, and we want to partner with them. I think there is, there's a trust with our clients and a trust, in the market that we have picked a side and we're dedicated to that experience. I think that's been important. So, and for now, that is where we'll stick.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, if you're going to have human lawyers and you're going to have that trust aspect to the product, then yeah, absolutely. On the pricing, and I'm sure a lot of lawyers, if they're watching this, will find that interesting. So you've brought the price down for certain streams of work. We should
Yeah, that's right.
these are very narrow streams of work, but for those streams, you brought the price down by about 90%. Did you say?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
So yeah, so we do it, transaction based, right? So you have a review of a document. We charge for our basic review, charge $900. We think it's about 10 times more. Maybe some law firms do it slightly less. And then and so it's by transaction, you sign an engagement letter with us. It looks, it's replacing legal fees. And so it's sort of easy to digest, easy to understand. For a live transaction, you can pay an additional surplus if you do want, sort of more lawyer intervention, especially if you don't have an in-house general counsel and you want us to drive. But again, that's based on a fixed fee. Almost nothing we do is by the hour.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
And so, but what happens when it escalates? What happens if something is particularly tricky? You just say to them, look, we'd love to help you, but that's just not our ball game. We don't do that. We go and talk to Kirkland and Ellis. They'll help you.
Yeah, like if someone has a big tax question, for example, and that was really strategically, again, early this year, that to me is like the big divide. Are you going to bring on a tax lawyer or are you not? Right. I mean, that sort of just philosophically sort of serves
Yeah.
as a proxy. And at the beginning of this year, we said, no, we're not. There's a lot of place to get really good bespoke tax advice. Our clients already have relationships with tax and regulatory is the other area, and we can work together with them. We already work, you can work side by side with another law firm, to answer those questions. And again, we think that the solution is so valuable in other ways that is something that clients appreciate, and they're not, they're already paying by the hour for that lawyer, and then our fees are down. We don't have to pass, we don't have to sort of, we can stay skinny and affordable.
No, and also, I mean, I think it's a question of triage, isn't it? It's like, you're paying for the high value advisory, like, tell me what to do. I do not understand it. Tell me what to do. That's a totally different question to, I have these documents. They
Exactly.
documents. Is there anything in them I need to worry about? These are very, very different questions.
That's right. And law firms are really good at what they do, right? So, I mean, they are, in general, the lawyers are very smart, very responsive. They provide a service that really is, unrivaled, right? Where else can you sort of call them on, on a Friday afternoon, say, I have a deal and I need it to get done next week. And all of a sudden
They'll do it. They'll
you know, you'll have people. So the thing that's happened is that there's sort of a level of work that has now been fed to law firms because they do it so well, but they really don't need to do it, right? It's just that you don't know where else to go, right? And so with technology, you can say, okay, go here, right? It's just, there's really just not another solution. So you have a 120-page document. You don't actually need, law firm associates reading that document. That you need law firm associates for a lot of other things, but you don't need it for this process. But where else do you go? Like where else is, scale up, scale down services, where you can, be assured of the quality. And that's really what we're offering, right? Is you're assured of the quality. You have lawyer verification. We have very pedigreed lawyers on our staff. And so, you
And
know,
actually, on that point, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, like, one of the arguments is like, great lawyers don't become entrepreneurs, not because they don't lack entrepreneurial
sure,
ability, because some of great lawyers are very entrepreneurial because they're
absolutely.
entrepreneurial
Yeah.
in creating,
They
new
started their own firms.
but they think, well, hold on a minute. I can't own this venture. I can only be a partner, an equity partner in the legal bit. So, I mean, how do you incentivize really good lawyers to join this? Because obviously you want to grow, you want to go international, maybe in the UK where you'd be very, very, you could function without hardly any barriers at all in the UK. I mean, how do you incentivize people to join? Do you say like, I mean, how does that work?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think there are two incentives early on. One is there are people that, if you're in finance and you used a calculator, or you're in finance and you used Excel, you knew right away those are game changers, right? If you use AI, it's a game changer. And so there are, we only need six of them. We only need a small number of people who are believers that they want to be on the journey of something new. And then just, I mean, cash, right? People want like you can pay people in equity, you can pay people in cash, and
Yeah.
we will pay people, right? I mean, if we're super successful, people will be rewarded. Some they could get some equity in the ink, or we could pay them in cash, right? They're just compensated. The partnership role, I mean, if anything that you've learned from Kirkland is that, some of it's based on partnership share of profits, but they're really just compensating like any other business, right? They have non-equity partners, they have partner guarantees, and you're just getting cash if the business does well. So I
Well,
think
that's yeah, and absolutely. I mean, the vast majority of all the people who work in any law firm are not shareholders.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And they get compensated, so that's okay. Like, I mean, even if you went to, a big, if you went to Goldman today, some of it's in the equity, but some of it's just, like if I'm at a place that's very successful, people should get compensated. And we're okay with that. Like, that's exactly what we want to do. Obviously, we have someone who came to us from BlackRock, so he was not on partnership track anyway. And then we have people who were, associates at law firms where sort of partnership wasn't like it's not like on the cusp of, going. Eventually to hire partners, we'll have to think through that. But we're
Yeah,
not trying to match that salary right
yeah,
now or
not
match
yet.
that compensation.
Not yet, yeah. Which leads us to the last question, which is where from here? So you want to grow, obviously, you can go global. As mentioned, I think certain markets such as the UK, I think you could merge your two businesses. Don't take my advice on that. Go and talk to
Oh,
the
for
UK.
sure you can in the UK.
But I imagine you would find it a lot easier to operate, with far less, barriers.
Yes. I mean, Richard is English, as I mentioned, so we think about going to London a lot. Sort of if the U.S. becomes too unbearable in its regulatory scheme, like we are not opposed to going.
Or go the other way and open an office in Arizona
That's right, we could do
or
that too.
Utah,
Yeah, yeah.
and do the
We
ABS route.
haven't seen we haven't seen the benefit yet, but yeah, I mean, obviously there are a lot of opportunities open to us. I mean, I think where we are right now is, really sort of going deep in private markets. Every single type of investment we're going to do on investor side, we're going to do directs. We're already doing a variety of fund transactions. And I think there's a new universe of legal data that hasn't existed. And we're seeing that appetite for our clients to have access to their own legal data is pretty amazing. And that, we're just in the infancy of that being sort of cost effective and possible. And that is taking sort of this idea of the gatekeeper and the owner of legal data and what's market being from outside counsel to being to a client. And that is a very big shift. And I think you could see that in many, many different, industries is sort of being, oh, I have my legal data and now I want to interact with it myself, and sort of understand it and figure out leverage points to negotiate and, query, my own database. And so because we can do that at affordable price, it's sort of changing the texture of the client experience with their own data.
Interesting. So, yeah, so it says, like, the next chapter is gonna be building out that sort of, like, KM function effectively.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, sort of KM of 2.0. It's not just, it's sort of like it really feels more like, how you would have, when we started in my career, the idea of HR data was very limited, right? I mean, someone would have a file that was a paper file and you really didn't know, much about your own workforce or what was needed. And, now HR data is such a driver of businesses. I think legal data will be the same. Like clients really didn't have that, right? And so we're just learning. Every time we come out with a new feature, we learn from the clients, A, how they would use that, and B, what they want next, right? Like all of a sudden they're saying, oh, now that I can do this, I want to do this next thing. I want to do the next thing. And so it's
Well, I
really,
guess they weren't running it through tech streams, they were running it through
no,
human streams, and humans were sending
exactly.
email to each other, they were moving
That's right.
firm, and they were
That's right.
leaving the firm or whatever, and, Bob's gone on holiday, I've got no idea where that file
Exactly.
is,
Exactly.
Yeah, whereas, like, now it's like, yeah, it's in the system. We ran it through the system.
That's right. And it's verified data, right? So, whatever the answers are, it's been verified by a lawyer. And all of a sudden now I have this complicated, 100-page plus document that is a lot of words that has now come into the format of data that I can graph, I can compare, I can, think about, I can see trends, I can see outliers. And that has just been, sort of magnificent for clients to start to experience that.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. Well, we got to leave it there, but it's been a real pleasure and a real eye opener. And good luck with everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.